Hello friends, welcome to Misty Moon Designs. I hope everybody's doing well. In my studio, we dive into the world of jewelry making and explore creative designs and endless possibilities using beads and components. Whether you're a beginner or a seasoned jewelry maker, this channel is here to inspire with tutorials and unboxings. And today we're going to be making a very dainty and very sparkly crystal necklace, fit for a bride or for an evening occasion. And we're going to be using the beads that came in the latest GGC Treasure Bag. Now, if you're not familiar with that bag, I'll leave some information down below in the description section of this video, along with a link to the website, so you can go check it out. And don't forget that I always model my pieces at the end of my videos, so please stick around for that. As you can see, this gorgeous necklace features a cluster of sparkly dangles right at the bottom of the necklace. And even though it's a statement necklace, it's actually very dainty. And you'll see later on when I model it for you. But the sparkles aren't just in the center, they're actually along the strands as well. We're also going to be making a very easy pair of earrings to match, and I can't wait to show you how to make this set, so let's go ahead and get started. And here we have the GGC Treasure Bag, the latest release. I believe it came out at the beginning of this month. And the name of this bag is Festive. There are actually two bags released. One was called Elegance and the other one was called Festive. They've been releasing two bags at a time lately. And usually it's the same beads but in different colors. And in case you're not familiar, this is actually a limited edition bag. It's not a subscription. So once they're gone, they're gone. But anyway, like I said in the intro, I'll leave a link down below this video in the description section so you can go check it out. And as always, this bag was absolutely filled with tons and tons of sparkle. But of course there were other finishes as well, not just sparkly faceted beads. And one of the nice things about GGC Treasure Bags is that they always offer beads of different sizes, large ones and small ones. And I wanted to make something dainty, and of course this is the perfect bag for that because it always contains tiny beads. So when I came across these gorgeous electroplated cuboid beads, I got inspired right away. And I wanted to add a little bit of color. So these tiny triangular shaped beads in this pale gold color were the perfect beads to use. So let's go over the materials for today's project. Here are the materials for today's project. In this tray we have some cuboid beads, and they're faceted and they're clear colored, as you can see. They measure 4 by 4 by 4 millimeters. And in this tray I have some triangular faceted beads. They measure 4.5 by 4.5 by 2.5 millimeters, and the color is pale gold. And both of these are electroplated, which makes them very, very sparkly. And down here I have some ball head pins. They're pretty thin gauge. They didn't come in the bag. I got them on Amazon. I think the gauge is about 22 gauge and they're about 2 inches long. I want my necklace to be very dainty. So if you use a thin gauge, I think it's better because it definitely makes the piece more dainty versus using thicker gauge. In addition to this, we're going to be using some craft wire and we're going to be making some wrap loops. So the gauge is pretty thin as well. It's 24 gauge, but it is German style. So that means it's a little bit harder than other wires. And of course the color is gold. We're also going to be needing a small piece of 20 gauge wire for the center piece, and this is in a gold color as well, as you can see. In addition to all this, we'll be needing some jump rings and a lobster clasp and some EOI hooks for the earrings, but I'll bring those out later on when we get ready to use them. So let me show you how we're going to do this. It's actually very simple. We're going to create some dangles. I'm going to go ahead and create one, and then I'll do the rest off camera so this video doesn't end up being too long. Step 1 is actually very easy, but step 2 is a little bit more complex. So let me show you. I'm going to start by creating a dangle or a charm. And for that, I'm going to use a triangular bead at the bottom, like this, and then a cuboid bead. So that's what it looks like. Using round nose pliers, I'm going to grab the pin right above the bead like this, bend it, switch to this part of the pin, and I want my loop to be relatively small. I'm going to wrap the tail around the nose of the pliers, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. So now we have a loop. I'm going to grab the loop with my skinny pliers. These are actually crimping pliers, but I like to use these for this purpose because they have a very skinny tip and they grab really well. And with these pliers, these are needle nose pliers, I'm going to grab the tail and I'm going to create a couple of wraps. And now we need to snip off the excess. So I'm going to use my flush cutters. And of course you need to tuck that tail in if you see one. So there's my little dangle. So that's basically it, and I'm going to need a whole bunch. I'm estimating about maybe 30 or more to include the ones that I'm going to need for the earrings. And I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm going to go ahead and create these off camera and I'll be right back. Well, I'm back and I've created a bunch of dangles or charms, as you can see. I think there's a total of 25. I may need to make some more for the earrings, but I wanted to go ahead and show you this next step. Once we complete the focal part, we'll go over everything and I'll tell you exactly how many dangles or charms you need. And here we have some 4mm size jump rings. They're actually 18 karat gold plated. I recommend that because the color of the gold is a little bit more subtle than base metals, because they're actually going to be quite visible. Now, ideally, I would have preferred a thinner gauge. These are 20 gauge. I would have preferred something like 22 gauge for a more delicate look, but these should work out just fine. So now we just need to assemble it. Like I said before, step 2 is a little bit more complex. It's complex, but it's doable. And some of these are open because I use them to create my prototype. Normally, I don't like to reuse jump rings, but since these are 18 karat gold plated, I didn't want to waste them. So let me show you how we're going to do this. I'm going to take this jump ring, this is open, and I'm going to insert a dangle and a closed jump ring like this. And you'll have to excuse that noise. My neighbor has decided to pull out the leaf blower. It never fails. Whenever I film, he does that. It's such a coincidence. Hopefully it's not too disruptive or too loud. So that's what we have so far. I have 2 jump rings to create some space between this dangle and the next set that we're going to add. So let me grab an open one. I'm going to slide it into this jump ring, the last one that I added, like that. And now a dangle. And now a closed jump ring. And another dangle or charm. So now I'm going to close it. I like to flatten my jump rings to make sure they're closed properly. That's just a little tip, because you definitely don't want any gaps. So let me show you what we have so far. Like I said before, I'm using extra jump rings to create space between this bottom one and the 2 top ones. Let me pick up this jump ring. Boy, I hope he doesn't decide to blow leaves off his entire driveway. He has a very long driveway. So now let me go ahead and slide this jump ring into the open one, like this. A dangle. And a closed jump ring. And another dangle. And let me close it. I'm going to flatten it to make sure it's nicely closed. And we're going to add one more set. So I'm picking up an open jump ring. And I'm going to slide it into the one that I just added. Let me see if I can find it. It's this one right here. It's a bit challenging, but there it is. And now this last set's going to be a little bit different, because I'm not going to add an extra jump ring. I'm going to add 2 dangles without the jump ring, like I did in the previous step. And I'm going to close this one up. So that's what we have. I hope you can see exactly what I'm doing. I know it's a little difficult, but let me see if I can lay it out. I know it's hard to see where the jump rings are, but hopefully if you follow the steps like I showed you, you should be able to make this pretty easily. Now, potentially you could make this a lot longer, obviously. You can add more sets of 2 dangles to make it longer. It all depends on how large you want your piece to be and whether or not you want it to be dainty, or if you want it to be a little bit more substantial looking. And actually, this is the exact same steps I'm going to use for the earrings. So I'm not going to go over this again, but you can just follow along by rewinding to this part of the video. And again, for the earrings, you can make them as long as you want to as well, obviously, by adding more sets of 2. But you know what? I think I'll add another tier to make this a little bit longer. But I wanted to stop here to show you what the earring would look like. So now I need to add an additional jump ring because I didn't do it in the previous step. And I'm going to slide it into this jump ring right here. Let me close it. So now we're ready for the next tier. Let me pick up this jump ring. And I'm going to slide this jump ring into it. Like that. And now a charm. And another one. Since this is the top, I'm not going to add a jump ring in between. And let me close it. Oops. So that's what we have so far. And I think that's long enough. Let's see how long it is. It's about 1.25 inches, which is perfect. So this one has a bottom charm, and then it has 4 sets of 2. And I'm going to create another component, but the next one will have the bottom one and 3 sets of 2. So I'm going to show you one more time, but it's pretty much the same step over and over. Let me go ahead and open up a jump ring. Insert a dangle into it and close it up. And it sounds like my neighbor just finished blowing leaves. So that's good. Let me pick up this one. And I'm going to slide it into the closed one, like that. And now a charm, a closed jump ring, another charm. Let me close it. So that's what we have. We need 2 more sets of 2. Let me pick up this jump ring that's open. Slide it into this jump ring, like that. And now a dangle. I need to decide whether to call them dangles or charms. I keep switching. And now a closed jump ring. And another charm. Let me close it. So now I have 2 sets of 2, and we need a 3rd set. And this is the final set. Let me slide it into this jump ring. Slide a charm into it, and another one. And since this is the top tier, I'm not adding a jump ring in between like I did in the previous step. I hope that makes sense. So this is what we have. And it's going to go up against this one once we connect everything. It's really quite simple, but the final product is beautiful and definitely very sparkly. So I'm going to create another component with 3 tiers on this side, or 3 sets of 2, and then 2 sets of 2, and that'll be it. And like I said before, it's the same step over and over. And don't forget that the top tier does not have a jump ring in between. And of course, don't forget to add the jump ring in between for the lower tiers, or the lower sets of 2. And the reason I'm not adding a jump ring between the 2 at the top is because once I mount them on a piece of 20 gauge wire, I don't want them to hang too low. You'll see later on what I mean once I get to that step. So let me go ahead and do the rest off camera, and I'll be right back. Well, I'm back, and as you can see, I created 5 components all together. So once again, this one has a bottom dangle and 4 sets of 2. This one has a bottom dangle and 3 sets of 2. And this one has a bottom dangle and 2 sets of 2. So now we just need to mount them on some 20 gauge wire. And actually I'm missing one of these 4mm beads. We need a total of 6. And here I have a piece of 20 gauge wire. It measures about 3 inches, and I decided to keep the curve. I didn't straighten it out once I removed it from the spool because I do want a bit of a curve. Using my round nose pliers, I'm going to grab the end like this. I'm not going to bend my wire or anything, and I'm just going to create a loop. Let me move down a little bit because I don't want the loop to be too big. You do want to make sure that it's closed properly though. So there it is. And now I'm going to slide one of these beads on. And now this first component, I want to make sure that I grab the jump ring and not the dangles. And now another one of these beads. And the next component, you want to have one dangle on either side of that jump ring when you slide it on. And now another one of these beads. Let me just find that jump ring. It is a little challenging. There it is. And now a cuboid bead. And now the next one. Let me make sure I separate my dangles. And now a cuboid bead. And now the final one. And I'm going to finish with a cuboid bead. And you wouldn't guess what my neighbor's doing right now. He's actually power washing. If it's not one thing, it's another. He's a super busy man. I guess I should be grateful that he keeps a nice front yard. So there it is, guys. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh my gosh, I love this. It's so pretty and so sparkly. Now you don't want them too bunched up when you go to loop off this sand. You want them together, but not too squished up against each other. So I'm going to cut off the excess, leaving about, I would say 3/8 of an inch. Something like that. And now I'm going to grab this end and form a loop. Like I said before, make sure your loops are closed really well. Let me flatten it to make sure it's closed properly. And I might as well straighten this one out. You want them both to face the same direction. That looks pretty good. So there's my center focal. Let me just shake it a little bit. I think you can see it better this way. Isn't it pretty? It really is. I absolutely love it. Now I am going to attach some strands, some beaded strands, and I've already made them ahead of time, but I'm going to show you how to make them anyways. Here's one, and here's another one. Each one measures about 8 inches, maybe 8 1/4. When you go to make your strands, you need to take into account that this piece measures about 1 1/4 inches. And then of course the jump ring and clasp are going to take up a little bit of space as well. So that's another thing you need to take into account. And by the way, I don't think I showed the beginners how to open up a jump ring the right way. Sometimes I move a little bit too fast. I know it's after the fact, but I still want to show you. Here's a jump ring. Whenever you open your jump rings, you should always make sure that you open them this way, like a door. And then when you close them, you do the same thing. And I always flatten them to make sure they close properly. So that's that. Now to make these components is very simple, and I don't have a lot of beads left, but I can still show you how to make a couple of components and how to connect them. So here are my beads, and here's a piece of 24 gauge wire. I'm using 24 gauge because again, I want my piece to look on the delicate side, and as long as you keep your loops on the small side and you do wrap loops, it's perfectly fine to use 24 gauge. So I'm going to grab the wire about 1.25 inches down, bend it, switch to this part, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. So now I have a loop. I'm going to grab the loop with these pliers, grab the tail, and do a couple of wraps. Let me cut off the excess. I always grab this loop with pliers in the beginning because it's a little bit easier. And now I'm tucking the little tail in. For these components, I'm going to load one of these. Let me see if I can grab one. I'll just do it this way. It's much easier. And a cuboid bead. And another one of these triangular beads. So that's what we have. I'm going to grab the wire with my round nose pliers, making sure that I grab it the distance that I need to make 2 wraps. Bend it, switch to this part, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. I'm going to grab the loop, snip off the excess, grab the tail and do a couple of wraps. Let me line up my loops since I'm here. Snip off the excess. Tuck in the little end. Sometimes it's really difficult to see the little end, but you should always do this no matter what. And there's my first beaded component. Now to connect another one to this one, I'm going to do the same thing, but it's going to be a little bit different this time. I'm going to go ahead and bend my wire at about 1 inch or 1.25 inches down, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. I'm going to open up this loop, slide this component into it, like that, grab the loop, grab the tail and do my wraps. Snip off the excess. Tuck in that little end. So once again, I'm going to grab one of these beads. Whoops. A cuboid bead. Another triangle bead. Like so. Grab the wire right where the bead is. Line up that bottom loop. Bend it. Switch to this part. Wrap the tail around the nose. Flip the pliers around and continue to wrap to the back. I'm going to grab that loop now. Grab the tail and do my couple of wraps. Snip off the excess. tuck that tail in. And now I have 2 beaded components connected. And that's how you're going to do all of them. It's very simple, guys. It really is. It takes time, you know. I mean, if you keep practicing, it gets easier and easier. So now we just need to connect everything. Let me just get rid of these scraps. My mat always moves for some reason. I need to figure out a way to tape it down so it doesn't move. I am going to use an extended chain and I'm going to embellish it. Here's an extended chain. It measures about 2 inches. Sometimes I feel like that's too much, but it's nice to have the option of lengthening your necklace if you want to. I'm actually going to remove a couple of links. And these are not soldered, so I can just open them up. Just like that. To embellish the extended chain, I'm going to use these 2 beads, the triangle at the bottom and the cuboid on top, just like I did with these dangles. I'm going to grab it with my round nose pliers, bend it, switch to this part, wrap the tail around the nose, flip the pliers around, continue to wrap to the back. Let me open up that loop a little bit, slide my chain into it, like this, grab the loop, grab the tail, and do a couple of wraps. Cut off the excess. So there's my extended chain. Now to connect the strands, I'm going to use some jump rings so that the necklace has a bit of movement, although you could open up one of these loops and connect it directly to that, but I'm not going to do that today. So here's a jump ring. Let me open it up. I'm going to slide it into this loop. And now I'm going to connect this strand like that. Close it up. Here's another jump ring. Slide this loop into it. And now this strand. And close it up. You could actually bend this component a little bit if you wanted to. You don't have to though. A slight curve is fine. Here's another jump ring. I have a lobster clasp here. I'm going to slide it in like this and slide it into this loop like this and close it. He's actually out there again with the leaf blower. Oh my goodness, poor guy. He's obsessed with leaves. I'm not sure if you can hear it. Now to connect the extended chain, I'm going to use a bigger jump ring. This one measures 6.5 millimeters. And it's very thick, as you can see. I'm going to slide the strand into it. And now the extended chain. Like that. And close it up. So that part's done. So there's my beautiful sparkly crystal necklace, fit for a bride or for whoever wants to sparkle and shine at an evening event. And of course it's going to look beautiful with these earrings. This is the same component that I created for the pendant. I did use stainless steel earwire hooks. Those are my favorite because they're hypoallergenic. And I have another component here. I made it ahead of time, but like I said, it's the same steps that I used for these components on the pendant, or on the focal, I should say. Here's another earwire hook. I'm going to open it up, just like a jump ring. It is a little trickier. Let me see if I can do this without fumbling too much. Like I said before, you want to make sure you have one dangle on either side of that jump ring, just like that. I hope you can see that. Let me close this up now. So that earring's done. I absolutely love this necklace, guys. I really do. I think it's very, very pretty. I hope you like it as well, and I hope you can make your own. As always, I'd like to go ahead and model it for you. Thank you so much for watching. I'm looking forward to seeing you again. Have a great day, and I'll see you next time. Bye.